I was part of a denominational spirit-filled church for over 20 years. And in those 20 years, I can't tell you how many times the dude behind the pulpit, the streaming camp, revival meetings came into our church with the same type of individual lying behind the pulpit there. And it's amazing. The majority of those people that streamed in, they were running high. It was they could walk. If they could walk on water, they would be acceptable, no more acceptable as true prophets and men of God. And I think more than half of those men who streamed into our church in the early 90s, in this non-denominational church through satellite, have now fallen away, committed adultery, in prison, theft. But it's interesting that I was involved with this full gospel church that made this non-denominational church that made all these glorious promises about power and wealth. And not one of those promises came to pass, but every week, like a Rolodex, like the sacrificing and the burnt offerings, just repeatedly over and over again of Pharaoh for 400 years. And the priests never turned around in those 400 years and said, hey, Josie, hey, Wilbur, we've been doing this for 40 years. And our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers been doing it, and nothing's happening. They never turned around and the people they were cut, that they would cut these sacrifices and these burnt offerings, spending all this time doing all this stuff. They never said, hey, Wilbur, I've been slicing up these things my whole life and nothing's happened. God isn't confirming what we have promised the people. How long we got to keep doing this for? This is ridiculous. But not one priest ever said, traditionally, this is useless. We're being oppressed by the Pharaoh. Nothing is coming to pass as far as the blessings of God were concerned. It was a turnstile tradition. It was the doctrines and commands of men. And I listened to that person for 20 years. And you may be laughing, but you got a lie that you've been believing too, that's destroying your life or has destroyed your life. So it can't be too funny, right? Nothing escapes. No person escapes. We all believe the lie. We all believe that the things we believe today, a year from now, many will be foolishness because we're not rooted and grounded by what God has revealed to us personally. But in those 20 years, that man lied repeatedly. I mean, over and over and over again, that he was inspired by God. And the things he was saying was revelation, was wisdom poured into him because he's a great and glorious man of God. Not one of the things he said came to pass. Not one of the things that he promised, what he said was inspired by God, and he was moved by the Spirit of God and obeyed God, did anything come to pass. The onus was always on the people in the congregation. The responsibility was always from the people in the congregation, what we had to do, what we had to say, how fast we'd raise our hands or stand up and praise God and lift up our hands and make a mockery of ourselves, because whatever he said was a lie. He wasn't inspired by God. He was inspired by men's mind and wisdom. Nothing he said was true. It was like Hagar turning to Abraham and saying, Sarah turned into Abraham and said, why don't we just fulfill this promise? I got an idea. That's all these people have. are carnal ideas. They're not inspired by God. You can't provoke God or your faith. It's given to us when God speaks to us. The man by the pool of Bethesda, Elijah, Jeremiah, they did nothing before God spoke to them but seek him. That's it. We've been lied to. You've been lied to. God desires to bring us into a loving relationship with him. That means we ask him what's going on. I prayed, and I said this before, and I'll say it again. Just recently, I was kind of confused. I was talking to my wife, and I made a prayer. And right then and there, God revealed it to me in a dream. And the prayer went like this. Kind of confused about this love thing. When we do something because we love people. There you go. That's a great word. Love. Could God honor it just because we love? And I found myself in this dream, in this vision, clear as a bell, that I was in a bank with my kids, robbing it because they needed money. I was doing something wrong, but I thought I'd be blessed because it was something good. As the dream and the vision went on, it slowly began to unfold to me that I was going to go to jail. And as I conveyed that to my kids, like, you couldn't turn the clock back. You couldn't turn away from what you did. The alarms were sounding. The cops were on the way. They didn't care. And I was afraid because one of my great fears was going to jail. Not that I was a thief or a robber. I'm just saying, for some inner fear was in my mind. So how many times do we do things that are against God's command? Adultery, stealing, lying. And we say, it's of God. It's good. How many times do we give the preacher and we think that's all we have to do? Give to the man. And God will bring these astronomical blessings to us. It's really a joke. It's never happened, never will happen. But how many times in this life do we think we're doing something good? And because it's entailed in our perception of love, we think God is going to bless us. As foolish as robbing a bank. How are you laughing now? Because you know in your own life you're doing the same thing that other people have done in their lives that were wrong against God's commandment, but you still went through with it because you thought it was love. You were convinced by a demonic force that what you were doing was love, was going to make you happier. It was going to make you blessed. Maybe it wasn't my idea to rob. I don't know who I found out is I was in a bank trying to rob it with my kids. But how many times have men in this life done things they know that it's wrong, thinking there's going to be some good coming out of it? God gives us a command, an individual precept, an individual warning to us, and you know it's God, but we ignore it. Just like that dream. I knew I was doing something wrong. I wasn't surprised the cops were going to handcuff me and take me to jail, but I still did it. And then by the cover up of love. And we have that unbelievably rampant today. You're going to divorce your wife. You're going to lie to your boss. It's going to cost you your job. You're going to do something that you know is wrong. Lie, cheat, dishonor your parents. Just those 10 commandments. And you're going to justify it. It's like I did in the dream. It's called love, man. and you know what you're doing is wrong. You know what you're doing is sinful. God wishes to talk to you in an intimate way. And believe in that dude behind the pulpit that it's become a turnstile. Just like the dudes coming with the doves and the sheep and the goat, whatever they got to bring to the sacrifice, they pile it in there and it becomes just a tradition. Just like your prayers, just like your Sunday church going, but you don't seek God. You're doing what's right in your own sight and you're paying the price. God wishes to speak to you, has spoken to you, and you know what about and where, because those instances refuse to escape your mind. Not deja vu, not reincarnation, but maybe a dream or vision or some person passing your path. What's taking you so long to bow the knee? Whatever you're doing or think you're doing is not going to bring happiness or peace.